Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And we've got a fun little show for you today. We are talking about Shrek, which is now an iconic thing in more ways than one. And it's pretty much like one of the biggest meme generators of all time.
Yeah.
It's quite the book. Yes, that's right. It started as a book, and it is now a giant movie. It's a musical. There's been a bunch of cartoons and everything, like specials up the wazoo. There's I think 3 sequels. They really can never stop with Shrek. From that and just all of the crazy meme stuff alone. We will get to all of that on this episode. We want to thank each and every one of you for listening to the show, and we're almost at 50, believe it or not. We're at, I think this is episode 46, so we're reining in on 50 episodes, but I got some good news for you. We are moving! That's right, we decided this week that we are just not crazy about what the folks at Podbean are doing for the amount of money that we are paying. They've been a good service, but we just decided that what we were going to be paying is just, we could do better things elsewhere. Honestly, the problem is in the tagging, guys. I'm not trying to say don't go to Podbean. I liked Podbean, but they've got this thing where when you try to tag episodes, you only have a limit of how many tags you can use ever, and you can add that for you can upgrade it or something, or get a plugin or whatever, where you can get up to 100 tags. You start with 20, you can get up to 100 tags, but you can only use those tags forever. And if you run out of tags, if you're doing a bunch of episodes and you need to tag them accordingly in different things, you can only use those 100 tags forever. And if you need a new tag that you don't have room for, you have to delete it. Now, that wouldn't be so bad, but they apply to every single episode. It isn't every episode you can just do up to 20 tags, and then the next episode you get 20 new tags. It's the same 100 for every episode. So when you delete it from one, you delete it from every episode that it's been tagged in. It's very counterproductive, and for that, it just did not make any sense to me to do it, because you lose the SEO on that. So Podbean, as a word of advice, please fix that, and then maybe we'll come back. But we are on Spreaker. We're going to be on Podbean for about 2 weeks for the changes to fully go. But we've got all of our episodes are now ported onto Spreaker, and we will be using Spreaker from now on. I don't know if that's going to affect all of the channels that you can find us on, but it will not be affecting our Apple or our Spotify, I believe. I know Spotify for sure. We won't be Apple. I'm 90% sure. So we'll find out, because every episode going forward is going to be on Spreaker, and then in 2 weeks it will be gone from Podbean for, I don't know if it's ever or temporary, but it'll be gone. But right now you can catch us on a bunch of places. We are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture. You can help support the show by not only finding us on Spreaker now, Podbean for the next 2 weeks, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, TuneIn, Alexa, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, or Stitcher. You can also find us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter. That's twitter.com/WDTEpod. We don't post a lot on Twitter because it's a toxic nightmare, and everybody who goes on Twitter for too long ends up becoming crazy and just loses their mind completely. So we'd rather not be that way, so we don't post on Twitter too much, but you can follow us there. And you can also like us on Facebook, facebook.com/whydoesthisexist. If you want to give us money, that's great. And you can do so by heading over to Patreon at patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. And we have a bunch of tiers. You can join for $1, as little as $1, and you will get access to our Discord, and you can chat with us if you're feeling, if you so desire. You could throw in ideas that you might like, and maybe we'll use them, maybe we don't. You could give us a tip. You could tell us we're great. You could tell us we're terrible. And you could do whatever by going on there. We've added a new tier. If you didn't listen last week, $10,000. We'll have no choice but to review Metallica's Lulu. Read. It's on there. For $10, you can pick an episode that we can do, and you get to be on it. So you get to be on the episode, and you get to dictate the episode that you want to be on, and just pick within reason. But it
can't be Metallica's Lulu. That's only the $10,000 tier.
Yes, that's the caveat. It cannot be Metallica. You're not paying $10 for Metallica's Lulu.
Yeah. So if you're listening, there you go. If you want us to,
wouldn't that be a way to get him on the show?
It's like Lulu's his favorite Metallica. I mean, that would be an Elon thing, probably. Is like just because it's a fucking meme.
I could see him doing it to troll.
Yeah,
that might be a lot of fun just to do that anyway. I don't know, but anyway, you could do that on Patreon. We would really appreciate it if you become a patron and give us money. That would be nice. You can also email us at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. That's whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. You can also comment, like, and subscribe on our YouTube stuff, and you can even message us and tell us you like us. If you're a little bashful about just giving us a public comment that we're the scum of the earth, you could say it in private. It's fine. And if you want to read some extra articles and listen to the show at the same time, you can also do that at whydoesthisexistpod.com. Maybe I don't know if we'll keep it forever, but that's but you can get some extra articles over there too. Anyway, that's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues, so let's get on with the goddamn show. You talk. I'm going to drink some water.
Okay. So today our episode is Shrek. I think most people know what Shrek is. Most people have probably seen it. It's a pretty good movie. Came out originally. So a lot of people don't know this, is that Shrek is actually based off of a book that was actually written in 1990. It's only loosely based. Pretty much only the characters of Shrek and Donkey are the same in the book and in the movie. And the plot is not the same at all. So it is, again, it's just loosely based on the character, the character in the book.
Well, there is a princess. He does.
Yeah, but they don't name.
But
it's not.
They don't name her.
Not named Fiona. I mean, there's a dragon too, but again, it's like there's just some. It's just like really some fairy tale tropes. And Shrek also he's like he breathes fire in the book apparently. So, And it originally, actually,
he has parents too. Actually,
yeah,
in the book.
Yeah, so the book is actually completely different from the movie in that the plot is that Shrek, his parents decide that they kick him out of the house so he can see the world, or kick him out of the swamp. So he has to go kind of on an adventure. So it's actually really different from the movies, because of course in the movies Shrek lives alone in the swamp and he's trying to kick out the fucking fairy tale creatures that are placed there as a friggin' internment camp, basically, by Lord Farquaad. Originally, Steven Spielberg actually acquired the rights for the book in 1991, and was going to produce a traditional animation film based on it. But that fell through, and Dan Aykroyd was going to play Shrek, and allegedly, and Chris Rock was going to play Donkey. So that would have been a very interesting adaptation. But that fell through, and then DreamWorks bought the rights to it, and they started developing.
How would that have been? That would have been.
It would have been pretty interesting, I think. I think Dan Aykroyd. I
feel like he would be mismatched. I feel like he would be a very strange Shrek.
Yeah,
I feel like
it's kind of weird how many projects have we talked about that Dan Aykroyd has been either attached to or somehow involved with that fell through. When we talked about this on the Ghostbusters show, Dan Aykroyd, the original idea for the Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, that was completely different from what we got. I mean, Dan Aykroyd was still in it though, and then in Trading Places, Dan Aykroyd was in it, but originally it was supposed to be Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor in that. So, and that fell through and became something different with Dan Aykroyd. And now we have Shrek, which was originally supposed to have Dan Aykroyd and Chris Rock, which did not happen. And instead, we got the Shrek that we know, the DreamWorks picture.
Well, we also have the bad Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters Afterlife, which were supposed to be completely different things in the real. And if they went the way that they were supposed to, neither of those movies would exist, because we would have gotten a Ghostbusters trilogy and possibly a saga if they could have done who knows how many movies with the original cast.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a 6 degrees of Dan Aykroyd thing with
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a 6 degrees of Dan Aykroyd, except it's cursed, because whatever he's attached to somehow either falls through or changes in some way. It's the Dan Aykroyd curse.
The Dan Aykroyd curse. I bet you
it's probably because he's probably fucking summoning things with his friggin' Crystal Skull vodka. That's probably why. It's bad mojo.
No, I bet you Julia Childs put a hex on him.
Julia Childs?
Did you ever see that sketch? He has this very famous sketch in SNL where he's Julia Childs, and it's just him by himself, and he's doing a Julia Childs impression, and he chops his finger off or something, or he cuts his arm. He's chopping the chicken, but he's doing it as Julia Child, and he's bleeding out profusely, but he's still trying to cook the chicken, and he's describing the recipe, and he's not acknowledging this giant gash in his body, and he
that's hilarious.
Out. And Julia Childs was a fan of this sketch, and she loved it to the point where every time she had a dinner party, she would play the sketch for her guests.
Well, she loved it, then she wouldn't have cursed him.
What if she didn't love it?
It's not the curse of Lord Petrus.
What if she didn't really love it and she just told people that because every time she showed the thing, the hex was taking more power, and it was
I don't know. Julia Childs does not take me as someone who would just lie about something like that. She probably actually did love it.
That's the perfect cover. You would never see that coming.
She's too nice. She's like the Bob Ross of cooking.
That's what you think.
Anyway.
The moral of the show is to question everything. I'm questioning everything. I'm doing my part. I don't know about
so Shrek. Anyway, Shrek. Barring the Dan Aykroyd curse, Julia Childs curse of Dan Aykroyd thing, DreamWorks eventually acquired the rights in 1995, or I don't know exactly when they acquired the rights, doesn't say, but they started development in November of 1995 of Shrek, it actually took quite a while, 6 years in development to make the movie. And I remember, I don't know if I saw a documentary about it or like some kind of special features on the DVD maybe, but I remember watching the animation at the time was actually very, very advanced. It was really unprecedented. They actually went above and beyond with Shrek on the animation. And you could tell it holds up still pretty good even today, I think.
It's still funny.
Yeah, oh yeah. The humor is definitely still there.
I remember we just went to the movie theaters. It was my mom. I think my mom had the day off. What was it? It was like, it was Good Friday. Whatever Shrek came out. What was it, like 2001 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Good Friday, which for those who are not Catholic or not raised Catholic or whatever, Good Friday is the Friday before Easter, so which is like the biggest Catholic holiday besides Christmas. So yeah, just that. So anyway, we were in the movies, and my mom had taken the day off because I think we all had off from school, so she took the day off, and it was just, what are you going to do? Let's go to the movies. All of our kids are like, pretty young. Let's just take them to movies. So it was awesome. My parents, it was my mom and my friends and their moms and whatever. We all went to the movies, and they randomly picked Shrek because it was just a new thing, but like I didn't even know what it was. I didn't see any advertisements for it that I remember. Like during whatever cartoons I was watching, I don't remember a lot of promotion for this movie at all. Not that I would remember too many things from being 11 years old, but like most movies that I wanted to go to, I knew what I was going to see. This, I had no idea. My mom was just like, hey, let's go to the movies. We went to the movies. What are we watching? It's this thing called Shrek. And we were like, what the hell is that? So we watched the movie, and none of us had any expectations. And we cracked up the whole time. And I think it was the first time that my mother and me were both laughing at the same jokes, and the jokes were not all for children.
Yes. No, Shrek is really not a children's movie.
It's really not. There's a lot of adult jokes and innuendos in there that are carefully woven in, and it's still happened, and it's still funny.
I would say it's for older kids, because it's not. Yeah. It's not explicitly bad, like friggin' like Sausage Party or something like that. But it's got a lot of adult humor that on little kids would be lost. So it's kind of like a movie that really the whole family can enjoy. Like there is a little bit of adult humor that might be a little too I don't know. I don't think it's that bad that a little kid can't watch it.
Like the Lord Farquaad penis joke that it goes completely over every kid's head, and it went over my head up until I was a young adult.
Yeah,
I had never registered with me the part where he looks at where he's inside the castle and everything, and he turns to Fiona and he's like, you think he's compensating for something?
Yeah,
and it's it's funny to a child if you even know what the word compensating means. It's a child because Lord Farquaad is a short guy.
Yes.
Obviously has a Napoleon complex, but if you're an adult, you know what he's really talking about.
Right. Yeah, so there's enough jokes for everybody to kind of enjoy it. I'm sure most people that are listening have probably seen it, and if you haven't, it's a fucking hilarious movie. You should watch it. And it holds up today. Again, it's 20-year-old movie now, it's 22, almost a 21-year-old movie.
Wow!
But the animation is still great.
Shrek can drink. Shrek can drink next year, or no?
No, this year.
Drink this year. Shrek can drink in 6 months.
Yeah. It's funny. Basically, the basic plot is, Shrek is an ogre, and he lives in a swamp alone by himself because that's how he wants to be, because he feels the whole world hates him because he's an ogre. And basically Lord Farquaad is, like we talked about, he's like this short little dude who like rules over the land of Duloc. And he's kind of like this authoritarian ruler and wants this perfect land because he is compensating for something. The fact that he's like tiny, but also probably because he has a tiny penis.
Probably.
But so he wants this like perfect world, and he has this really oversized castle, and so he basically like takes all the fairy tale creatures and ships them away. Like, puts out a bounty for them, people turn them in, and they get shipped away to Shrek's swamp because he just assumes no one lives there because it's a swamp. Well, obviously this pisses Shrek off because he hates being around people. He wants to be alone. So he kind of like teams up with the talking donkey, obviously, and they go on this, quest to Duloc to like, get friggin' Farquaad to get the friggin' fairy tale creatures out of his swamp. So after like a pretty hilarious friggin' fight between like all these knights you have to watch it. It's a whole like friggin' thing. It explains what it is. Farquaad wants a wife, so he's sending all these knights on a quest to get a wife for him because he's fucking too useless to do it himself. And so Shrek fights all these knights, and Farquaad decides
he's being a proper politician because...
Well, yeah, pretty much.
He's just sending he's just sending the knights, he's just sending the army to like fight his battles for him. And
yes,
he's like just going to sit back and take all the credit.
Yeah.
Something any president would do.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm too old. Why send my son? Let's get all the grunts in there. Let's trick everybody who's like about to graduate from high school doesn't know better.
And he really doesn't give a shit either because he's like, some of you may die, but that's a chance that I'm willing to take. Like,
yeah, he just like blatantly says it.
And this is because the magic mirror tells him that he needs to marry a princess to become the true king of Duloc. Right now, he's just like a lord. So anyway, Shrek shows up to try to talk to him and be like, "Hey, get your people out of my freaking swamp." And like he has the knights attack Shrek because he's an ogre, and ogres are mean and they need to be killed because they're ugly, right? So Shrek just like friggin' mops the floor with these guys, and there's like a wrestling match and stuff. They go to like this ring, and he friggin' hits them with a chair. This is the funny thing about Shrek is that there's all these anachronistic jokes, like it's supposed to be obviously set in like medieval times, like it's a fairy tale world, so like it's like medieval kind of. But then they have like all these modern things, like they have like Starbucks and like Carl's Jr. and stuff like that, and
yeah.
There's in the second movie, there's one scene where like, Shrek is like riding Donkey, and they had taken a potion which turned Donkey into like this white stallion, and like so the knights are trying to chase them down, and it's like a parody of like the O.J. Simpson, like, oh, he's riding a white Bronco, like
Oh my god,
so
I forgot about that. That's great.
It's funny. There's all these like anachronistic jokes, like and a lot of topical jokes. So obviously the topical humor doesn't really hold up as well because they're still pretty funny, and most people will get them, I think, even if you're like a younger kid. Because I think most of the stuff that's topical, that it's still like at least relevant enough that people know about it. But anyway, so Shrek beats all these knights. Farquaad decides to send him on the quest because he was able to defeat all the knights. So Shrek agrees on the condition that he'll get the deed to his swamp, and he can evict everybody. Send them somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, Lord Farquaad has like nothing to lose,
right?
Because like even if Shrek doesn't, kill the dragon, if Shrek dies, then like that's one less ogre as far as like Farquaad's concerned, and then he could just dump everybody in the swamp anyway.
Yeah. So Shrek and Donkey do this quest. They go to locate Princess Fiona, who's locked in the highest room of the tallest tower. And, this is kind of like a running joke in the movie that, like, Shrek, like, knows where she is by default because he read it in a book, like, because it was like a fairy tale book. It was like a fairy tale he was reading while he was in the shitter, basically. And he, like...
Doesn't he wipe his ass with, like, one of the pages?
Yeah, he, like, rips out the page and uses it as toilet paper, like... So, they find Fiona, they defeat the dragon by, like trapping her, and it's also a female dragon, and the dragon falls in love with Donkey.
Of course.
And eventually, like, they freaking have, like, deformed children. So that's another
that
whole
are, like,
fucking...
half dragons, half donkeys.
Yeah. So, Shrek rescues Fiona, and she's kind of, like, taken aback because he's, like, not... First of all, he's, like, completely not a knight at all. He's just, like, a freaking, like, just trying to get the job done. So, like, she's, like, expecting all this, like, romantic, like, he's gonna read her a poem and, like, do all this shit. And he's like, no. Like, we're just getting the hell out of this castle.
Yeah.
And then he reveals himself to be an ogre, and she's even more disappointed. She's like, oh, you're an ogre? Really?
Yeah.
So they go start their quest back to Duloc so he can bring her back to Farquaad. And along the way, they have to stop because it's going to be, like, it took more than a day to get there. It's like, Fiona's all of a sudden like, oh, we have to stop. I can't, we can't go on. It's getting dark out. So they're like, okay, whatever. So they set up a little camp, and she goes and sleeps in a cave, basically. And they're like, okay, whatever. So Donkey and Shrek, stay outside, and they kind of have like a heartfelt moment because, Shrek kind of is like, says why he's like the way he is, like that, basically he's jaded and cynical because of how people have treated him his whole life because he's an ogre, even though he's not a bad guy, but people treat him like he's a bad person because because of the way he looks.
Yeah, this is this is the infamous ogres are like onions.
Yeah, well, that happens before when they were talking.
It?
That yeah. Well, this is like when
it happened. Well, like first he's trying to explain it but can't, and now he's able to get the explanations.
Yes. Yeah, he kind of gets through to Donkey like why he's like he has no friends and stuff and is jaded and the way he is.
So he peels his layers back.
Yes. So the next day they go to, or they start back on their journey, and they encounter Robin Hood, who thinks that like the ogre has kidnapped this beautiful maiden and needs to be like killed. So like this causes a whole fight,
and they're all trying to explain to him that like he's not carrying her against his will. Like he's like my lady, you got kidnapped by this ogre, and she's like, I didn't get kidnapped, and he's like, yeah. He's like, oh no, he's got a spell over her, and she's like, no, I don't. He doesn't have a spell over me.
And Robin Hood is French, which just makes it fucking hilarious.
Yeah, so he's just like an ignorant doofus.
He's like a huge douchebag. Like it's like hilarious.
And he does this big grandiose song about how he's gonna kill Shrek and sleep with the princess, basically.
Yeah. So then she gets pissed off and just kicks his ass, like, and she does all these like friggin' like kung fu moves, like it's like the fucking Matrix, basically.
Yeah.
Which again, it's obviously a reference to the Matrix because the Matrix was like one of the biggest movies in fucking America at the time. So of course they're gonna have every friggin' parody movie had a Matrix reference.
Well, this started that because after Shrek. Like every comedy movie started to suddenly have a Matrix reference.
Yeah,
exact bullet time one too.
Yes,
everything would try to do a bullet time to the point where like even Conker's Bad Fur Day, which we've talked about in this podcast on a whole previous episode, has like a point where like they did a Matrix spot at the end.
Yes.
So we've talked extensively about things.
Yeah.
Still sometimes do it, but like it's pretty rare. I mean, I feel like they'll now that the Matrix Revolutions or Rebirth or whatever the hell the new one was called, I don't know, the Matrix 4. Whenever since that's out, I could see some cartoons or some things like doing some Matrix jokes for the next.
I haven't really seen anything, but and I think
I feel like it's gonna be. I feel like the hackiest of writers will do it and try to revive that, but I don't think you'll see it as much as you did in 2001.
Well, yeah, I think the bullet time thing was kind of done to death because, like, after the Matrix, everybody was doing bullet time. It just became like the thing. Like, bullet time became a trope in movies, whether it was action movies or like comedy movies. Like everybody, there was always bullet time. Like, so I think. After that, it kind of got done to death, so you don't see it as much anymore. I mean, there's still slow-mo in movies, but it's not like bullet time like it was, where like friggin' people are like diving sideways while shooting, and like it's not as much as that anymore.
And then the camera has to go like get in the complete other direction.
Yeah, like it circles around in like a crazy way or something. Yeah, that doesn't really happen as much anymore.
Thank God.
I mean, it was cool in The Matrix. Yeah, I mean, I think it really just goes to show how like big of an influence The Matrix had on friggin' culture when it came out, because there was nothing really like that at that point. Like, it was a brand new thing, and it was like it was weird because it combined like a good sci-fi action movie with like these deep philosophical like themes and plot lines. That was like really hadn't been done like that before. Like, in certain movies it did, but it wasn't like to the extent of it was as it was in The Matrix. So that was, and it was like a kung fu movie as well. It was like all these different genres combined. It was really like, it was like groundbreaking.
Yeah, and it did work for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah, and it was such a fleshed out world, and it was so like, I mean, we're we can get into The Matrix. We'll probably do an episode on The Matrix eventually.
Probably.
I know we want to do an episode on the Animatrix probably soon. So, we'll talk about it, because The Matrix is a full episode in itself. Anyway, back to Shrek.
Yeah.
So they defeat the Robin Hood, but Shrek gets an arrow stuck in his butt. So Fiona sends Donkey out because he's being annoying to, like, go find a flower. And really, all that is, she makes it sound like, oh, it'll heal him, but it's really just to get rid of him so she can pull the arrow out. And it's at this point that we kind of see that, like, Fiona is kind of like falling for Shrek a little bit, and Shrek is kind of falling for her a little bit, and they kind of do like a friggin' like lovey-dovey friggin' montage while they're walking back of like
which
them
is
like
hilarious.
just bonding.
They also murder birds.
Yeah. And they also friggin' blow up a frog and a friggin' like snake and turn them into balloons, and they float away.
So they murder birds and frogs and snakes.
Yeah. So they're either becoming serial killers or falling in love. Only time will tell.
Where was PETA for this?
Well, I mean, it's that's true, but it's a friggin' it's an animated movie. If PETA's pissed off, then they're idiots. Well, they are idiots, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were pissed off.
There was no PETA, just animated in the movie. They didn't pay for a license. There wasn't like a whole Furries murder group of like testing.
No animals were harmed in the making of this. Imagine millions of animals were harmed in the making of this. But like they had to like friggin' like to power their computers, they were just pouring like fucking baby chicks into like a giant bird.
That's terrible.
It's like, oh, well, how could possibly animals have been friggin' harmed in this movie? It's an animated movie, and it's like this has harmed more animals than ever any movie ever. Somehow.
Or it could turn out that the director was like a crazy maniac, and like he needed to get like the authentic animal death noises, so he just
started killing animals in real life,
just like in the sound booth, and they're just murdering like a bunny, and he's just like, no, that wasn't loud enough. Go get another one. And they're just killing all of these innocent rabbits, and then there's a he's like, no, that didn't squish right. Go get another one. There's just this like blood-drenched studio, and then finally they go through every pet shop in town that'll work with them, and then finally the director's just like, you know what? We'll just use the first take.
After they've murdered every fucking bunny in the county, basically.
Yeah, and there's just like two bunnies in the cages that are just like hugging each other, and then, well, they're bunnies, so they start multiplying.
Yeah.
But out of fear. Out of fear.
So after their killing spree,
that is not what actually happened. By the way, that's not what happened. No. People don't do that anymore. They did do that for
Cannibal Holocaust had real animals killed in it.
It did, and it was a terrible thing to do. And I will never watch that movie again.
Cannibal Holocaust was also, the director was arrested because the fucking authorities thought it was an actual snuff film.
Yes, they thought
they arrested him for suspected murder until it turned out that the actors were alive.
Yes, the actors had to show up in court and hey, no, it's actually me. I'm not dead.
Yeah.
And they had to prove it. So, yeah, maybe we'll talk about that another day, but I'm not going to, I will never rewatch that movie.
I've never seen it, but I would have to obviously watch it to see, if we were going to do an episode on it.
Well, hide your kid.
I know it's one of the few movies, it might be the only movie in existence where they actually show real animals getting killed on TV, on the screen.
It's definitely one of the few. I can't say, I can't say whether or not it's the only. I hope it's the only, but I don't know. And I don't know.
I mean, there could be other fucking weird, obscure fucking films like that have.
I'm sure I'm sure it exists, but I'm not going to watch it or see it out. Be one of your requests if you're thinking about it.
Cannibal Holocaust.
Well, no, they can request Cannibal Holocaust. Nothing else where anything actually really dies.
Well,
I won't do it. You're going to need to pay me $20,000 for that. I'm not making that a new tier. I refuse to do it. Anyway, continue.
So, they have this little thing, and then they decide to camp the last night before they make it to Duloc, at this, abandoned, I guess it's a windmill or something. And, so, again, Fiona kind of, rushes away before, the nighttime happens. And they're all confused. And Shrek is, really, starting to feel the feelings. So, he kind of, walks off to think about it. And, think what he's going to say to her and stuff like that. And meanwhile, we finally see why Fiona has been hiding at night is because at night she transforms into an ogre because there was a curse laid upon her. Which is actually explained in the Shrek 2 that the curse was actually laid upon her by her fairy godmother so that she would be destined to marry... what's his face? Fucking Prince Charming, who's the fairy godmother's son. But that's all Shrek 2. Well, that's another story for another day. So, Shrek kind of comes back. He wants to confess his feelings to Fiona, and he overhears her talking to Donkey about the fact that she, feels that she's an ugly beast, and Shrek kind of only hears part of the conversation and thinks that they're talking about Shrek, and he gets all upset. And so he goes to the castle to get Farquaad and bring him. And the next morning he shows up and, Shrek is all mad and pissed off. And he's basically, oh, here she is. All right, give me the deed to my swamp. Now everyone get the fuck out. And so he goes back to his swamp all mad and upset that, because he thinks that, his life was, ruined and she's being mean to him, even though she wasn't. And, he kind of just fucking feels like he has always throughout his life that people that he thought were his friends, hated him because he was an ogre. And so he kind of pushes everybody away. He pushes Donkey away. She goes off and starts the preparations to, get married to Farquaad. And he goes back to his swamp alone. And then Donkey shows up and starts he starts dividing up the swamp, and Shrek's like, what the hell are you doing, Donkey? And Donkey's like, well, hey, we both went on the quest, so we both get the swamp, and, kind of really forces Shrek to realize what's going on and then kind of tells him hey, you idiot, she wasn't talking about you. She was talking about, he doesn't admit to her admit to Shrek that she is an ogre, but he's oh, she was talking about somebody else, not you. Yeah. So he convinces Shrek to go back and object to the wedding so that way, he can finally actually confess his feelings to her and they could live happy ever after. So they go.
Does anybody do that at weddings?
I don't, I think that
maybe
it's
that was
not really
thing. Maybe that was a thing many years ago.
Yeah, but it was to prevent there was actually a legitimate reason for it. It was to prevent people who are secretly related to get married or something like before they had records and DNA testing and shit like that. If someone was separated at birth so they didn't marry their sister or something. I think that's what it was. So you could object to it and say oh no, that's your sister. I don't think it was actually oh, this is my long lost love and I'm objecting to it.
That'd be awkward.
Well, yeah, that would be really fucked up.
That'd be the conversation that...
I mean, I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure that's happened at weddings.
I'm sure.
But it's like, like, oh, Jesus, dude, like, fucking, how much did you drink?
Yep, sucks to be you. Or I could see it going back to like, I could see it going back to like kingship days where like only the royal family and guests were really allowed to be there, but like maybe somebody else of royalty could stop the wedding if they felt that it would be harmful to the kingdom or something like that.
There was an actual, I forget, there is a legitimate reason why people would object. And it wasn't like, it didn't have anything to do with like, oh, I am in love with your husband, I object to this wedding. It actually had a legitimate, like, why there was an objection to a wedding, and still exists today, why you can object to a wedding. But it's like a legitimate thing. Like, you're not supposed to like just say like, oh, I'm in love with the bride, so I'm going to go to her wedding and object to it so I can marry her. Like, that's not how it works.
That also, yeah, I was going to say that is also the most least likely thing to get you in with the bride.
Exactly. But somehow it works with Shrek, because he goes and he objects to the wedding,
Honestly,
and
just hope the bride has a sister. Just do that.
Well, I mean, Shrek it works. But obviously Fiona, actually does care for Shrek, and she decides now then to show him, because it's right at sunset that this happens. So she decides, okay, Shrek, I'm going to show you why what I was talking about and why I was so secretive. And she, the sun goes down and she turns into her ogre form, and, like, then it's all like, oh, well, this, he's like, oh, this is a surprise. And of course, Farquaad, because he's a scumbag, is immediately like, oh, she's like grotesque and a monster. So, he calls the guards in, and there's a huge brouhaha and a fight. And of course, at this point,
he orders them to kill her too.
Right? Yeah, and then he takes the crown anyway, even though, yeah. And then fucking Donkey bursts in with the dragon, and basically the dragon just eats Farquaad, and he's defeated, and everybody wins. And and of course, Shrek and Fiona have their first kiss, their true love's first kiss thing, and that's supposed to break the spell. And then she goes and she's still an ogre, and she's like, she realizes that like, oh, Shrek loves her for who she is, not because of what she looks like, and that's also like it's why they have true.
It's in the spell, like the last line,
yes.
Like in true, like and with true love's kiss, take true love's first, take true love's true form. So
right,
she like depending on who she wound up with, she like if she fell in love with like a human, she would take her human form forever. And
right,
but she fell in love with an ogre, so she stayed an ogre. But
it's even more than that. Beyond the fact that it's Shrek and he's an ogre and she's an ogre, it's also, I think, the fact that Shrek loved her for who she was, no matter what she looked like, and that's why she, it doesn't matter to him. I guess it's a bonus for him that she's an ogre and he's an ogre, because he thinks she's more attractive now that she's an ogre, because it's like his type.
Yeah, but also it's just a good message. Just like, you need to just love somebody for who they are on the inside, and not put all of like anything on the outside. Just put it aside. Like, you really want to be with somebody's personality. Like, you don't with beauty fades. You don't need looks all the time or anything like that. It's like, it's a nice plus, but like, it's what's inside that's important.
Yeah.
That's my for the day.
So that's pretty much it. They obviously get married. There's a huge thing at the end where they sing friggin' I'm a Believer, the Smash Mouth's version of I'm a Believer, and there's a whole thing. And this movie was obviously the friggin' soundtrack was like full of like modern music for the time. So there was Smash Mouth, there was The Pretenders. The second movie has like a lot of like hits and stuff like that, and it's again, the anachronisms, like there's all this modern music, but it's supposed to be a fairy tale, but it's they were trying to like kind of make it like timeless, I guess. The second movie is pretty good, not quite as good as the first, but it's still a really good movie. It's still funny. The third one is kind of like meh, and then the fourth one is like
I've never seen the fourth one.
It wasn't that good. It was kind of like, Shrek basically, from like the pressure of being like, a dad and married and all this stuff, he basically like wishes for like one day where he, could go back to being just an ogre in the swamp again. And it was like, he like wishes this to Rumpelstiltskin, who's like a fucking, trickster. And so Rumpelstiltskin basically like
permanent thing.
Yeah, it's like a monkey's paw kind of thing where like be careful with what you wish for, and then it turns out Rumpelstiltskin's like this dictator, and like Fiona is like the head of like this resistance movement. It's like a whole thing, like, and nobody knows who Shrek is. It's almost like the friggin' Spider-Man No Way Home like plot, I guess.
Wouldn't that be funny if that's how like whoever the director was just got the idea? They were like, oh, I'll just take the plot of Shrek 4 and I'll just turn it in
and put Spider-Man.
I mean, who would know? Who would piece that together besides two idiots that maybe get 5 listeners a week to their stupid podcast?
Now they're going to hunt us down and murder us because we figured out the secrets.
Just as long as it's not Suge Knight.
It probably will be, because we already trash talked Suge Knight. That's like, okay, we're going to send Suge after him.
Well,
all right, someone bail him out.
Snoop Dogg owns Death Row Records as of today, apparently.
Yeah, I saw
maybe
that.
Maybe he'll stop it. Maybe Snoop will save us.
Snoop, save us. If you're out there listening right now, make sure Suge can't get to us.
We'll get you all the
for revealing the truth about the fucking how they stole the plot of Shrek 4 for Spider-Man. The most ridiculous friggin' situation ever.
Please help us, Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear, please save us.
So this movie, the first one was a huge hit. It came out, the budget for it was $60 million, and they made over $487 million at the box office. And that's not to mention franchising and the home video sales and all the other stuff that they get and you know, syndication and on all the like different streaming services, and this is like a huge franchise they turned Shrek into.
This is a multi-billion-dollar industry by itself.
Yeah, and they've made like so many different spin-offs, and like, you know, you have the main movies, then there was all these spin-off movies. They did like, you know, like holiday themed movies and stuff like that, and they have a Puss in Boots movie. Puss in Boots was a popular character in the second, introduced originally in the second, played by Antonio Banderas, and he got his own movie. There's video games, there's, you know, there's Shrek the Musical, which is one of the most cursed images I've ever seen in my life.
But it's actually, listen, Shrek the Musical, as bad as it looks, and as silly as it, and as ridiculous as it sounds, it's actually not terrible. It's
really,
no, you can actually watch it on Netflix. Like, we watched it, like, one of our first dates. We, like, yeah, I think it was like our 4th or 5th date or something. I don't know what it was. But, like, we were tired and we just wanted to, like, we just put something on just to, like, you know, just to, like, cuddle and be tired and just, like, keep something in the background so, like, we don't have to go home.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you want to just put this on? Because I'm morbidly curious, and I don't have to pay money to see it. So, like, not any money that I would be like mad about parting with. So it's like, so she was like, "What the hell?" And we watched it, and we got into it. So like, we slowly moved from just cuddling on like the bed to the couch to being in front of the TV, and just like, this is fascinating. It, like, we were, like, compelled by this thing. So they actually did a very good job. And that spawned a whole nother genre of weird, like, non-conventional Broadway plays. Where, like...
Yeah. Now they make a musical about literally anything.
Yes.
Like, there's so many...
Well, the SpongeBob one is actually good, too.
Oh, my God. I can't.
No, it's legitimately good. Like, I never wanted to see it until I was in a comic book store. And there was some woman in like her like mid-20s to early 30s who was on the phone with her friend, just like, listen, I know this is going to sound like, she was on the phone with her friend and she said something along the lines of, listen, I know you're going to think that I'm crazy, but you have to see the SpongeBob musical.
Oh my gosh.
Don't take your kids. It's like that good. And SpongeBob the Musical ended up winning like a Tony or something like that.
Well, the Shrek the Musical was nominated for a number of Tony Awards too, apparently.
Yes, it was. Like, they're good plays. But now they make a play about everything. Like, there's a Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, yeah. I was going to say there's a Beetlejuice one.
Which I've heard that's great, too, and I want to watch that.
I mean, literally, they're gonna make a friggin' musical out of anything. Any franchise now is like fucking open season, pretty much.
I think. They did Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, which was one of the worst musicals ever.
I did not like it at all. I went with my family because my brother is obsessed with Spider-Man. Yeah, I've been there. I went and saw it on Broadway, and I did not like it. We only went because my brother is obsessed with Spider-Man. He loves Spider-Man more than anything in the world, pretty much. So we were like, he was like 15 or 14 at the time. I don't even remember. So we went, and I did not like it. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. I'm not like.
Oh, I like musicals.
I'm not a huge fan of them. So, that was not that great of a musical as is. It was more of like for kids kind of thing.
I heard it was really weird.
It was very weird.
I mean, there
was like this whole like thing about like the origin of Spider-Man, and then there was like the myth of the fucking like the Greek myth of Arachne and stuff like that was somehow tied into it. It was so bizarre. It was a fucking fever dream, pretty much.
Why would you even put that in there?
I don't know.
Like, it's not like you're trying to make Spider-Man historically accurate or anything.
Right. It was weird. It was very bizarre. I think they put it in there just so they could have another musical number about it, pretty much, because they needed, like, oh, shit, we need an extra number. Okay, let's do this.
I mean...
It's got spiders. It's spider-related.
I guess.
I think they were, like, the whole point is they were trying to say, like, Arachne was, like, the first Spider-Man or something. Like, it was, like, in ancient Greece, like, she was Spider-Woman, I guess. It was fucked. It was weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a cool reimagining for, like, a comic one-shot, but not on Broadway. Like, I see, like, Marvel Comics trying to do, like, something like that, and they just, like, they shoehorn it in there, and they, like, just find a way to make it work, where it's like, this was the myth, but this was what actually happened in ancient Greece, and she was actually a hero, and the city turned against her. So, like, that's why we have this myth, but she was able to pass on her genetics because she ran away and had children, but that's why the myth is here. I don't know. There's like a comic book way to do it, but I don't think it should ever exist.
Yeah.
But, oh god, it's weird. Or even in, like, if they went into a Spider-Verse, like, there's a female Spider-Woman named Arachne. Like, that would actually just be fine if they just did that too. But
yeah, no, it was actually like the Greek like one though. It wasn't like
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's weird. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. That's weird.
Anyway, back to Shrek.
Yes, please go back to Shrek.
The Shrek has become like a fucking gigantic meme, like to the like perhaps one of the biggest. I think it's bigger than like, you know, a lot of like franchises from like the late 90s and early 2000s are very meme worthy. Like SpongeBob is really popular for being like memeable, but like Shrek has taken on this whole new like level of memery that like is like beyond what anything else. There's like all these friggin' weird like absurdist humor and it like it's so weird like and Smash, of course, All Star by Smash Mouth has become like, you know, like the rallying cry of the memes.
It's gotten to the point where like Smash Mouth now hates that song, and they refuse to because people bombarded them with memes, and they eventually got like so sick of it that they were like, please don't do this.
Yes.
I don't know if they even I feel like for a little while, I don't know if they did, but like I feel like for a while they stopped playing it.
I think they did for a while, but then like people like were pissed off, so they had to like, you know, it's one of those things like they had to bring it back even though they hate playing it.
Yeah, that sucks, because I bet you at one point they loved playing that song, and now they can't.
Well, I mean, that was, even before Shrek came out, that was their biggest song. They fucking probably made bank on it. That was like, so anyway, it was like one of the biggest songs on American rock radio for like years after it came out, and then Shrek really kind of like boosted it into like the stratosphere. So, that's probably their biggest song, and I'm sure they made lots of money off of that song.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that it became like an internet meme because of Shrek, and now they're like forced to play it. Like it's like
you'd hear that song like 5 times every hour on like.
Oh my god! You listen to fucking like pop rock radio at any point in the late '90s, early 2000s, you would hear fucking All Star by Smash Mouth at least once.
Yeah, you would hear that probably followed by Barbie Girl.
Yeah.
Which that's another cursed song.
Yes.
My dad ruined because he played it into oblivion, and we had Aqua exploded for no reason with that freaking song.
Yeah, that was their one-hit wonder. They were one-hit wonder.
What a weird thing. They were like Austrian or something, right?
I think Swedish.
Swedish? Well,
yeah.
They probably did the ABBA stuff. They probably went to the same studio with the same person who churned out hit after hit for like decades. There's a documentary about that studio, actually. Or it's part of it's part of some Netflix docu-series. I forgot the name of the series, but there's an episode on Pop, and they're it's all about like the ABBA stuff, because they go to this one there's one studio in like Sweden or something where like they produce every single pop hit for like the last 30 something years or more or longer.
That's interesting.
Probably for like 50 something years, because they're where like ABBA came from. Anyway, but yeah, my dad, everybody bought that tape. You could not escape that song. Everybody bought the tape. Then they bought the CD. If there was a book about it, they probably bought it. You could not get away from Barbie Girl. It's freaking nuts. I actually saw a video the other day of some guy who played every single section of Barbie Girl on bass, and it was tremendous. And difficult. But yeah, Barbie Girl, it traumatized me. You couldn't get away from it. Every single dance recital or talent show in your school or whatever, everybody was doing Barbie Girl. You couldn't get away from it.
And you know what? Another one, it was the freaking "I'm Blue" song. That song was fucking everywhere.
I like that.
"I'm Blue." I like that song too.
I still like that song.
I like All Star too. It's a good song.
It is a good song. It
became a meme.
Memes. Yeah,
it became a meme.
Yeah. So actually, more interesting things about the casting behind this. It didn't even stop with the weird casting stuff. Didn't even stop in all the alternate Shrek movies that now exist in the multiverse. They don't stop with Dan Aykroyd and Chris Rock. So Nicolas Cage was in it. So
yes.
Shrek was originally supposed to be a live action CG animation hybrid. And Nicolas Cage was initially supposed to be Shrek. Now, I think we've talked about Nicolas Cage and how he makes bad casting decisions.
Well, also Nicolas Cage is always in these weird, obscure these movies that never were, or Nicolas Cage, the friggin' the Superman movie with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
he's another Dan Aykroyd, I guess.
Yeah. He was originally going to be Shrek, and that
would have been so bizarre.
Oh yeah, I don't,
because Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage. He doesn't play anything else. He's Nicolas Cage in every movie.
Yes,
and Con Air is Nicolas Cage with a Southern accent.
Yeah. So if you want to be shown that God does exist, Nicolas Cage was.
I'm going to show you God does exist. He's so bad, but I love it.
Yeah, he turned it down because we should do an episode on Con Air. Maybe that'll be the July episode.
Oh, I would love to do Con Air. I love that movie.
Anyway, so he turned it down because he didn't want to look like an ogre, which is a stupid reason. So why would you even audition?
Nicolas Cage reason too.
Why would you even audition for this? You've read the script, I presume. By the time you get to the audition,
maybe he didn't read the script. Maybe he was just he just saw the name Shrek and he's like, oh, I wonder what this is about. Let me audition for it. Maybe and just fucking showed up and didn't realize he was going to be an ogre.
Maybe he thought it was a biopic on Max Shrek, the actor who was Nosferatu.
Yeah, maybe
it's plausible. Anyway. He turned it down because he didn't want to look like an ogre. In 2013, Cage explained, when you're drawn in a way, it says more about how children are going to see you than anything else, and I so care about that. Which... What?
What?
Like, it makes sense, but it's just like, who cares?
Yeah.
He doesn't want kids coming up to him saying, "You're Shrek." Well, now that it's made all this money...
Well, yeah, fucking Mike Myers is like fucking retired now, basically, from acting because of Shrek, I'm sure.
Yeah, he does he does like things sporadically whenever he wants to, and he just chooses things because of this. Like,
right.
He made a great documentary about his manager, Chef Gordon, who managed Alice Cooper and started the celebrity chef craze, and like is just like he just is like gold everywhere. Like, he's always...
Yes.
Like, it's called Supermensch. It's a great documentary. But Mike Myers made it, and it's well done. But eventually it was Mike Myers, but it was going to be Chris Farley initially.
Yes. So Chris Farley had actually recorded most of his dialogue, but died before completing it.
Yeah, so we have... So if they wanted to, they could release a Farley cut of Shrek.
Yes. Yeah.
Would be interesting. I mean, I'm sure like technology has evolved to the point where they could... Well, I mean, they could just get a sound-alike guy to be Chris Farley.
They wouldn't even, I don't think, have to do that. They could probably go back through like Chris Farley's previous work and just find like recordings. Because what they did for... I'm pretty sure that's what they did. Maybe it's not what they did for when they had Tarkin in Star Wars Rogue One with Peter Cushing.
Did.
There was a recently a movie released where and they've done this before where like the actor dies before the movie's completed, but most of the movie's done filming, so they just go back and find like lines of dialogue and splice them together, kind of make it sound like they're still like giving their lines. It actually happened, I know, for Gladiator. The movie Gladiator, the guy who plays the guy who's like the head of like the gladiator arena or whatever that like owns all the gladiators, he actually died of a massive heart attack while filming Gladiator. God. But they had filmed most of his scenes already. But for the couple scenes that they still need to film for him, they basically just like CGI'd his face on a body double, and they just used like previous lines of dialogue he had spoken to finish his lines.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And they in The Sopranos, actually, Nancy Marchand, who played Livia, Tony's mother, she passed away like right as they were starting to film season 3, but her arc had not been finished yet because at the end of season 2 she gets arrested for using the fake plane tickets that Tony had, and then that kind of implicates Tony for like a RICO case. So the original plot of season 3 of Sopranos was going to be Tony trying to convince his mother not to testify against him and possibly even murdering her to stop her from doing that. Well, Nancy Marchand unfortunately passed away before they could do that. So basically what they did was they put a body double in and CGI'd her face on, and then used previous lines of dialogue so that she could have like one more scene with Tony before she like passes away of a stroke, in the show.
Well, they did similar stuff with Brandon Lee too for The Crow.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
he died before the movie was completed, so they had the stunt double and they CGI'd his face on there too.
Yeah,
which was also easier because like the scenes that they needed, he still had the Crow face paint, so it was probably significantly easier for the time. I'm sure that it was spotty, but you couldn't catch any errors as much. Like I'm sure it was a lot harder to catch any like weirdness with CGI face mapping at the time.
Yeah,
because of the face paint. But yeah, they did that with him too. And I don't know if they spliced lines together or if he was just silent for those scenes.
Yeah,
but yeah, they've done this a bunch of times, and we do have existing Chris Farley dialogue. There is a story reel that was leaked to the public in August 2015, and it's got a sample of Farley's recorded dialogue. But Janine Garofalo was supposed to be Fiona, Princess Fiona.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. That I didn't know.
Yeah, she was originally supposed to be Princess Fiona with Chris Farley as Shrek, and she just was like fired for like reasons that she still doesn't even know. Like
Unexplained reasons.
Yeah, they never told her why she was fired. They just recast her. They were just like, nope. But she like said years later, I never was told why I was fired. I assume because I sound like a man sometimes. I don't know. Nobody's told me.
Yeah, it was probably because they wanted fucking Cameron Diaz because she was like the hottest fucking female star in that time's period.
Yeah.
So,
well, this also like they did eventually get Mike Myers.
Yes.
Who had insisted on a total script rewrite because he didn't want to insult Chris Farley's version of Shrek.
Yeah.
So it was like, so all the dialogue in Mike Myers' version is completely different from the Chris Farley version. I'd like to see the Chris Farley version, or at least just to hear it, just to understand what the movie would have originally been.
Yeah.
But he wanted to voice the character for two reasons, Mike Myers, and he said, I wanted the opportunity to work with Jeffrey Katzenberg, and the book is a great story about accepting yourself for who you are. So in the rough cut of the movie, he didn't do the Shrek voice that we know and love. He didn't do the Scottish accent. He recorded everything in 99, and then in 2000, a rough cut of the movie was shown to him, and they asked him to re-record all of his lines in a Scottish accent. And like he tried doing like his he tried using accents from like other SNL characters.
Mm-hmm.
So like he had this guy Lothar of the Hill People and tried to do that, and he also tried to do a Canadian accent, and then like Jeffrey Katzenberg was just like, just do the films, and we took out $4 million worth of animation and just did it. So like it didn't really cost the studio anything because he just removed things that they were planning on doing, and they just like reallocated the funding to that. So like he got paid the same, he did it or whatever, and then like now the Shrek thing is just better. And like he got a letter from Spielberg thanking him about caring about the character, and the Scottish accent was like good for the movie, obviously, because now I can't picture Shrek without one.
Oh yeah,
but it would be interesting to see those things. This was also the movie that like put DreamWorks on the map, and they were in trouble before doing this thing. And like Jeffrey Katzenberg, so like Shrek is also like, this is also like comes into like the rewriting and why the book and the movie are completely different.
Yeah.
So like Shrek was a fuck you, and I don't curse that much on the show, but Shrek was a big middle finger to Disney World, to Disney.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Katzenberg was previously an executive in Disney during, like, as part of the animation department, and Disney's animation department was floundering at the time. Like, it's not that they were releasing bad movies, they were just releasing movies that just were not resonating in the box office.
No.
And they didn't know what was going on. They thought they were going to close the animation studio at one point.
Right. Well, I mean, this is before all their big hits like Frozen and stuff like that. You know, they had Pixar, which was like doing amazing movies at the time. You had A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, but they didn't have like their animation studio. And think about what was coming out from Disney Animation Studio. It wasn't really that much.
This was way before that. Like, so basically, Aladdin was the movie that turned that studio around.
Yes.
So Jeffrey Katzenberg, like, they just said, well, we don't know what, they just gave him free rein, and they just said, we don't care. Like, this is a sinking ship anyway, so, like, we're not going to, like, watch you, or just do whatever you want. So he, like, did a bunch of movies, and he was like, we need a big star for these movies. And, like, animation style became closer to the Disney signature that we see now in animated movies.
Yeah.
The writing was became similar to like the Disney style of like writing. And he was like, we need a big star. So they got Robin Williams, and Robin Williams agreed to do the movie on like several conditions, but like the two standout ones were like one, he wanted to do Fern Gully because he like was on a big environmentalist kick at the time, and he felt like he was like, I want to do something that's like educational and like helps people like not want to be like destructive to the environment. So he wanted to do Fern Gully, and he also was like, but I'm also too big of a star, so I only want to be on 25% of the marketing material. I don't want to be overshadowing everybody else, because everybody else, this is about them too. This is not about me. I don't want to look like I'm the major star. I'm a supporting character. I'm just here to lend my name to help boost the movie's credibility. I don't want to be done in a big thing, which Jeffrey Katzenberg kind of, he went around it in a smarmy way. Like, he had screwed over like the promotion for Fern Gully because like Robin Williams did not like Jeffrey Katzenberg, and he had been very vocal about it.
Yeah.
They did not get along. Jeffrey Katzenberg screwed him on Fern Gully's marketing and like promotion, so it wasn't as big of a success as it could have been, or at least Robin Williams had blamed that for like why Fern Gully was a flop. Fern Gully's not the greatest movie, but
it kind of became like a little bit of a cult classic.
It's not
when
terrible.
It was released on video.
It's not a terrible movie, but it's not like it's just not. It's
like it's one of those obscure childhood movies, like The Last Unicorn or Flight of Dragons, which was like wasn't like a huge hit at the box office, but like it was one of those things that like, you know, your parents would buy the tape for you when you were a kid and you would watch it. It's like, oh, it's actually a pretty good movie, but like not a lot of people would know about it.
But yeah, so anyway, so Jeffrey Katzenberg did honor. So, like, he screwed him over on the marketing for Fern Gully, but on top of that, like, they were constantly, like, pestering back and forth. And Jeffrey Katzenberg apparently was, like, pretty, like, difficult to work with. Mm-hmm. He kept poking the bear on, like, the promotion. And Robin Williams was like, no, I told you, I don't want to be on, I don't want you to, like, push me. Like, and so, like, he honored the 25% thing, but he made the rest of the poster around the 25%.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, instead of, like, him just taking up 25%, everything else, like, the other 75% was contained within the 25%.
Yeah.
So, like, you would see posters with, like, Robin Williams' name and, like, a foreshadowing of the genie, but everything in the genie's body.
Yeah.
And you'd see, like, and, you know, you'd see promotions like featuring the cast of blah, 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 and Robin Williams, and they would put emphasis on him.
Yeah.
Just so, like, he wouldn't technically get the top billing, but they would put more of, like, enthusiasm on Robin Williams. And it's like, you did what you asked, but you did it in the smarmiest way possible. And, like, that movie turned around the Disney Animation Studio, and they started doing hit after hit after hit and they started tweaking their formula. And the formula, this unfortunately had a negative effect where, like, every movie, regardless of what it was, every animated movie, the comedy relief character was always just some random comedian. They just threw them in there, and
that is true.
It was a trope that, like, it became a trope on its own, because, like, for the Hunchback of Notre Dame, you had Jason Alexander as like one of the gargoyles. You had Danny DeVito and Hercules as Phil.
Phil, yeah. You had freaking Aladdin technically had two, because you had Robin Williams as the genie, and you had fucking Gilbert Gottfried as Iago.
Right, and then you had Hank Azaria later on in, like, the other movies. Robin Williams didn't want to do any more Aladdin-related work.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is where the big FU comes in for Shrek. So Jeffrey Katzenberg was unceremoniously fired when Michael Eisner came in and became CEO of Disney. Now, Michael Eisner, he was like he kind of hotshotted himself. Like, he was like a good executive in the short term, because there was nothing but record profits and, like, big years, and also the guy before him wasn't very good at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the guy who was the ex-NFL player who was just atrocious and was only there for like a year or two, but or if it was somebody else, but like the CEO previously wasn't that good. And Michael Eisner came in, and he was actually very good for his first few years, but the mistake that he made was he started expanding Disney World into like everywhere, and he tried to expand the theme parks, and he was expanding too quickly, and ended up expanding himself into debt and almost bankrupting the company, especially when Disneyland Paris like was a total flop.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't designed well. They made it look like a Hollywood backlot, and like nobody wants that.
No. They wanted the Magic Kingdom.
Right. And they didn't give him like they didn't give them like a French retheming of the Magic Kingdom, which is what you would expect that they would do.
Right. Like, yeah, more focus on like Beauty and the Beast, because that was like took place in France, you know.
Right.
Rather than Cinderella.
Right. Instead it was more focused on like, hey, we're a studio, we're a movie studio. Let's give them the Hollywood backlot brawl studio experience,
which is stupid because they had that as the fucking Hollywood. Well, at the time it was MGM Studios, and then became Hollywood Studios in Florida, which was basically like that thing. It was like their backlot tour of Disney. So, you know, that was a stupid thing to do when that's what people want is the fucking Magic Kingdom. When you're going to do it, you know, it's one thing when it's Disney World because you have like all those different parks that you could, you know, they're like within like 10 minutes of each other, basically. You can go to any park you want, you know, you could do the like MGM, you know, the backlot thing, or you could do the Magic Kingdom, but like when you're doing a Disneyland where it's only going to be one park and that's all you have room for because it's in a city, like, you know, Disneyland in California or something like that, you have to fucking make it the Magic Kingdom because that's what people want. They want rides. They don't want to, you know, if they want to fucking do a backlot tour, they'll go to the fucking backlot place, not like fucking, they don't want that on their friggin', you know, their Disneyland experience.
Right. Plus the Universal theme parks, like, already was like the backlot.
Yes.
Park. So it was like, why are you even going to try to like do that? We already have one like that.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes no sense. I mean, now, like, they've since corrected things, and, like, Disneyland Paris is much better now.
Yeah.
It actually has a really cool Haunted Mansion that I want to go to. It's not called the Haunted Mansion. I should know this. I have a Haunted Mansion book. I love that ride, and I'm obsessed with it. But it's my favorite Disney ride, but I freaking... Phantom Manor, I think that's the name of it.
Oh.
They did a renovation recently where like they have like original dialogue, like original recordings of like Vincent Price when he was supposed to originally narrate the Haunted Mansion.
Oh wow!
When it was supposed to be just a walking ride. And,
yeah.
And for whatever reason they scrapped it, but they've since like remastered it and they inserted it into parts of the Phantom Manor ride. I would like to do that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the Haunted Mansion in Hong Kong is totally different. Oh God, what's that one called? Crap, it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember. But like you're instead because the spirits are different, or like because like ghosts and like spirits and things in the afterlife is like done is like different in like in the Western culture.
Yeah.
Like, it's not scary spirits. They're just mischievous and they're just like guides. So it's a whole different ride that's like not the Haunted Mansion at all. It's the coolest one, and I would love to go on that. But Disneyland Hong Kong overall isn't like amazing. The park that's the best park actually is Tokyo Sea, because it's its own thing. It's specifically for like Disney fan lore. So, like, they have, like, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, which is just, like, their secret society of, like, the people who find all these, like, crazy rides and everything, like, and it explains the animal kingdom for, like, all of the different, like the Yeti ride and everything.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that they built into it, and, like...
That's interesting.
In Nemo and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that's, like, the inspiration for it, so it's... And, like, sea is... supposed to be like the craziest park for like the best shows, the best fireworks and everything, because Japanese people are so enthusiastic that the shows are just supposed to be unbelievable. That's where we'd like to go for the big honeymoon, but it won't be for a while. Anyway, anyway, here's what happened with like Jeffrey Katzenberg's like middle finger. So Michael Eisner, apparently they butted heads a lot.
Yeah.
And Michael Eisner was starting to get more involved in the creative decisions behind the animation department, which Jeffrey Katzenberg was like, no, we're doing fine, leave me alone, like you used to. He's like, well, this makes money now, so I have to be involved, as like executives tend to do, which we've said on this show before. Executives are oftentimes the dumbest people in the entire company, but somehow they are in positions of power, and it makes no sense. So instead of just doing the thing, I'm not going to bother you. You seem to know what you're doing. Instead, he wants to get all up in his business, and they did not get along. And a secret name for Michael Eisner between like Katzenberg and people that didn't like him was Lord Fuckwad.
Oh,
so that's yes. So that's where Lord Farquaad comes in.
It's fucking hilarious too, because fucking Duloc like basically is Disneyland. Like it's like set up like Disney World, like where you go in and like there's fucking like a line to get it, like like rope. Rope gates or whatever, like a fucking amusement park, and like there's a dude dressed up in like a giant Lord Farquaad head, like he's like a mascot, and then they friggin' like walk in and they like there's like this like singing friggin' like puppet thing that's like It's a Small World almost, and like it takes their picture, like so that's hilarious. It really is.
Yeah, so Shrek was a big FU to Disney from Jeffrey Katzenberg, and they were not doing well, like, financially before this thing, like, took off.
Well, the best thing about it, too, is that, like, they used
animators during the Prince of Egypt or, like, other projects, like, if they, like, failed, like if they were, like, just crappy at their job, or if they weren't working out, they just sent them to work on Shrek because the studio was just in such dire straits where they couldn't cut people if they were bad, and they couldn't afford to get people who were better because they were hurting. So they were just like, we just have to move them to something else.
Yep.
But like if they just weren't working out, then they were just like, you're just gonna go work on Shrek. So like it was known as being Shreked, or like being sent to like the gulag, where they were like, just like, we don't want to see you anymore. Just go work on Shrek.
Yeah.
Like, you're not fired, but like you're fired from this, but you're not fired from the company.
Yeah.
So like Shrek was basically a ragtag group of rogues.
The most hilarious thing,
wonderful.
The most hilarious thing about it too is that they used all these different like fairy tales, and like they could, because like, and it, obviously Disney is known for their princess movies, like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella and all that. And they're all in Shrek because they're all fucking public domain stories that were written in the 1800s. So, like, Disney has no recourse. They can't say, oh, well, that's copyrighted. They're like, people like fucking DreamWorks, like, fuck you. You guys can't do anything about it. We're going to use all the characters that you made famous and make our own movie, basically. So there's Pinocchio, there's fucking, like, all the princesses, there's fucking the gingerbread man.
Pinocchio's my favorite one, because in the beginning, when he's like Geppetto, I freaking love that scene, because Geppetto, like, sells him out for some gold. He, like, Pinocchio's like, he's then they're like,
well, I'm not a puppet, I'm a real boy.
Yeah, and then his nose grows.
Yeah. And then the fucking guard's like, 10 shillings for the possessed toy. It's just so like deadpan. And the guard, of course, is voiced by fucking Jim Cummings. So it's like, he is the perfect like deadpan guard voice. Probably another fuck you to Disney, like hire Jim Cummings to be in the movie too.
Probably. That's just so funny. So yes,
And
basically was a complete like it was like a total hit by total accident.
yeah,
Like this,
it was a huge hit, and
this launched many careers of like not the people in it, but like the people who worked on it. This launched their careers because now, at the time, it was like, yeah, we worked on a project called Shrek, and now it's like, yeah, we worked on Shrek. Like me, like with like like with someone who wouldn't know that Shrek was like the punishment project.
Yes,
like they would never know. So like it wasn't just like. So, like, now if you, like, tell somebody, like, yeah, I worked on Shrek, like, no one's gonna, like, they would just think, oh, wow, this person's really good, not realizing that they just weren't that good at whatever that they were working on, or it just wasn't working out. So, like, it's just so funny. But, I mean, it's good for those people, too, because, instead of, like, a blemish on their resume or having trouble, now they'll never have trouble finding work again.
Yeah, well, and also it put DreamWorks Animation Studios on the map, and it made them pretty much the only animation studio that can compete with Disney Animation Studios, I think. Because like all the other animation studios that are out there,
it also made them the number 2 to Pixar.
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure during Pixar's like rough years, DreamWorks probably was thriving.
Yes. And you think about all the other franchises that they have now that are huge, like How to Train Your Dragon and
I really like that one.
Kung Fu Panda and stuff like that. And it's like, they really, they can all really thank Shrek for that because, they had some good movies previously. They had like The Prince of Egypt, The Road to El Dorado, Ants. These all came out before Shrek. But Shrek really
they didn't really
blew them up.
They didn't hit as hard.
No, not nearly as hard as Shrek did. It wasn't until like Kung Fu Panda and stuff that they started really getting more like, on the level of Shrek with how big of a hit they were. So I mean that's really all you could say. Shrek is it's a great movie. It's a good franchise. Some of the later movies aren't as good, but it's still pretty awesome. It's that's all you really can say.
Yeah, you could thank Shrek for just about any DreamWorks movie you like now, and it's just crazy.
Yeah,
and I guess you can thank Michael Eisner for being a douche in some way.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But I guess you can also sort of thank Jeffrey Katzenberg for being kind of a douche too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess it's douche is wild on this one.
So douche is wild. Well, all I have to say is Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Yes. And if you don't know what that is, you should go check it out on YouTube. It's some other meme related thing. It's probably the most famous Shrek meme.
Yeah.
It's very funny and very disturbing. I will to say the least.
And it's the most absolute truth there is. Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Yes. Forget about going down the rabbit hole in the JFK assassination. If you want the real truth, you need to. It's Shrek is love, Shrek is life. I guess that concludes this episode. We want to thank everybody who stuck around for this. This is going to be the first official episode on Spreaker, our new home, until something that makes us not happy and we moved somewhere else. But
we get $100 million deal from Spotify.
Sure. I hear it's pretty easy to get one. But we'll see. We'll stay tuned. I'm sure there were many people who were expecting us to talk about that, but everybody else has. We're not going to. Go listen to somebody else's show if you wanted to hear about their take on that. We just wanted to talk about Shrek. We did, and we talked about a few other things. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you had a great time, and I hope that you love Shrek too. And if you don't love Shrek, tell us why you don't like Shrek. It would be interesting to hear. Let us know in the YouTube videos because it helps boost the algorithm, and I hate those. So, thanks. We appreciate you. Looking forward to anything else that you want that's going to come our way. We can't wait to get to our 50th episode, and maybe we'll have some guests on. We've been talking about doing some like video episodes for like YouTube, so that like you'll still be able to hear the same audio, but you'll get the raw video for YouTube. And that's several motorcycles going up and down the street. This is not, the street's on a decline, so they're probably gonna get snagged on the bottom, and they're gonna fly off and die. So
oh my god.
I'm just being realistic. It sounds like they didn't know what they were doing. They weren't going up the right street or down the right street. I'm just being a realist here. This has been Why Does This Exist? I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything. And also, Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
I spread my butt cheeks for Shrek.
Oh, God.